She was beautiful, the kind of person who doesn't go unnoticed anywhere. Since she was a child, Clara attracted gazes and compliments, but at home, her beauty was more of a curse than a gift. Her stepmother, Laura, couldn't hide the envy that consumed her, turning Clara's life into an emotional battleground. Have you ever experienced a situation where what should have been your strength ended up attracting the worst in someone? But Clara had no idea that her story was about to change so drastically. Neither Laura nor anyone around her could predict what was to come. Because sometimes, life has unusual ways of turning pain into triumph and leading us to discover strengths we never knew we had. Want to know how everything changed for Clara and what her stepmother never expected? Stay with me, because what's coming next may inspire you in ways you never imagined. Clara had always been the type of person who stopped the room when she entered, not because she wanted to, but because her natural beauty seemed almost magical. However, this blessing became a burden at home. Laura, her stepmother, looked at her with that glint in her eyes, the kind that wanted to extinguish someone else's light. It's funny how, sometimes, people can't admire without comparing, isn't it? Envy is a feeling that eats away at the one who feels it, but it can deeply hurt the one it's aimed at. From a young age, Clara learned to live with the hostility disguised by her stepmother. While other girls received advice about life, she heard camouflaged criticisms, always laced with a tone of disdain. Laura tried to smother Clara's self-esteem, as if trying to put out a fire with more fire. As painful as it was, it taught her to be resilient, a trait she would carry for a lifetime. Curiously, the other adults around them seemed oblivious to the toxic dynamic between the two. Some even praised Laura for taking care of Clara, but no one saw the real game behind the appearances. Clara, even as a young girl, understood that you can't always count on others' perceptions. It's like the old saying, still waters hide deep dangers. So, she began to build an emotional shield, something everyone should learn to do. Laura's envy went beyond Clara's appearance. She hated the girl's spontaneous joy, the way she enchanted others effortlessly. Laura tried to diminish this with subtle jabs. Comments about Clara's simple clothes or her naive way. How many times have you seen someone brilliant being called naive? It's a subtle tactic to steal the spotlight from those who shine. Despite everything, Clara never let her stepmother's bitterness take root in her. Her secret? She sought refuge in books and music. When the environment around her was suffocating, she immersed herself in stories of courage and overcoming obstacles. Books like The Little Prince and Women Who Run with the Wolves became her companions. They taught her that true beauty isn't in appearance, but in essence. As she grew older, Clara realized that Laura's envy was actually a reflection of her own frustrations. It was as if every smile from Clara reminded Laura of something she had never had or had lost along the way. With this understanding, Clara began to feel empathy for her stepmother, but without allowing it to destabilize her. It's important to know the difference between compassion and tolerating abuse, something Clara learned the hard way. One day, Clara understood that she couldn't change Laura, but she could change how she reacted. Instead of staying silent or hurting herself, she began to respond firmly, but without losing her gentleness. Clara's beauty wasn't just external, but also in the way she faced adversity. And perhaps that was what bothered Laura the most. However, in Clara's heart, there was hope that something unexpected could change everything. And it did. It was on an ordinary day, like so many others, that Clara met Raphael for the first time. She was at the market, picking out fruits, when he appeared out of nowhere, holding a bag of books and a distracted expression. Their eyes met, and it was as if the world stopped for a moment. He wasn't handsome in the traditional sense, but he had an intriguing charm, the kind that captures attention effortlessly. Fate, sometimes, enjoys playing with unexpected encounters. Raphael started a conversation casually, commenting on the mangoes Clara was holding. The best ones are the ripe ones, but not too ripe, or they lose the perfect balance, he said with a smile. Clara laughed, amused by how he turned something so simple into poetry. That was the beginning of a conversation that stretched for hours and ended with the feeling that they had known each other for years, even though it was their first meeting. In the following days, they began meeting frequently, always casually. A walk in the park, a conversation about books in a cafe. Raphael had a way of making Clara feel at ease, as if she could just be herself, without masks. And that was new for her, as she was used to protecting herself from judgmental stares. He seemed to see beyond the beauty that so many admired, something rare and valuable. Their friendship blossomed quickly, like a plant watered just right. Raphael, with his simplicity and intelligence, taught Clara to look at the world in a different way. He would say things like, "Beauty is fleeting, but true connection is what lasts." And Clara began to realize how true that was. Have you ever met someone who changes your perspective with a simple phrase? Raphael shared stories about his life, but never went too deep into the details. It was like a puzzle with missing pieces, but Clara didn't mind. She enjoyed the mystery, the feeling that there was more to discover. He seemed to be a man of humble origins, but with a gaze that carried entire worlds. Gradually, Clara found herself completely captivated by him, like a book you can't put down. Despite the connection, Clara had her doubts. How could she fully trust someone who seemed to hold so many secrets? But there was something in Raphael's voice, in the conviction with which he spoke about life's values, that eased her concerns. He always said, "What matters isn't where we come from, but where we want to go." It was as if he already knew what the future held for them, even though he never made it clear. And so, without haste or pressure, something deeper began to form between them. A feeling that went beyond friendship, but still unnamed. Clara felt like she was about to enter unknown territory, but she wasn't afraid. She trusted that Raphael was different from anyone she had ever known. After all, life is full of surprises, and this one seemed to be just the first of many. When Raphael proposed marriage, Clara couldn't contain the mix of surprise and emotion. He didn't make an extravagant proposal, but rather a simple, intimate gesture, giving her a small ring with a plain stone, yet full of meaning. He said, "What matters is not what we show the world, but what we build together." Clara accepted without hesitation, feeling that this love was different from anything she had ever known. The ceremony took place in a humble location, a small garden with fresh flowers, surrounded only by close friends and family. There was no luxury or grand preparations, but the atmosphere overflowed with authenticity. Clara wore a dress she had chosen herself, without ostentation, but with delicacy. As they exchanged vows, she felt that the moment was perfect, like a painting created with the colors of simplicity. For Clara, the wedding was more than a union. It was a conscious choice to live a life different from what she had imagined in her youth. There were no sparkling jewels or grand parties, but there was a true connection between them. Raphael made sure to remind her that the greatest treasures in life couldn't be bought. This resonated deeply with Clara, who was beginning to understand what emotional wealth really meant. Despite the joy, Clara couldn't avoid some doubts that arose in her heart. Raphael was mysterious, and she knew little about his life before they met. But instead of letting these uncertainties consume her, she chose to trust what she felt. Sometimes, faith is what guides us when reason has no answers, Raphael would say, and these words echoed in Clara's mind like a mantra. The first days of marriage were filled with small discoveries. Raphael was skilled in the kitchen and loved surprising Clara with simple but delicious dishes, while she laughed at his amusing stories about travels and unexpected encounters. It was a light-hearted start, full of affection, where they both learned that marriage isn't about grand gestures, but about the small moments shared in everyday life. Clara realized that the true luxury of marriage wasn't in material things, but in the freedom to be herself beside Raphael. He didn't care about appearances or status, but about building something real. This approach was a stark contrast to the world Clara knew, full of superficiality. She began to see simplicity as a form of wealth that few understand. As Clara watched Raphael at the end of yet another quiet day, she felt a peace she had never experienced before. It was as if everything finally made sense, even with the gaps that still existed in his story. She knew there was more to discover, but she was willing to wait. After all, what matters isn't how much we know, but how much we are willing to live intensely what we have. Raphael's departure was sudden, like thunder on a clear sky. Clara could barely believe his absence, and the house, once full of life, now seemed like an empty place. The pain of loss was so intense that for days she could hardly get out of bed. But even amid the mourning, Clara felt that Raphael had left something more than memories, a silent presence that urged her to keep going. It was only when reviewing the documents Raphael left behind that Clara discovered a truth that would change her life. Among papers and letters, there was the revelation. Raphael was one of the wealthiest men in the country, owner of properties and businesses spread across the world. At first, she thought it might be some kind of mistake, but the evidence was undeniable. It was as if a new world had opened before her, full of possibilities and questions. The fortune, however, did not bring just comfort, but also a weight. Clara felt torn between the shock of discovering that her husband had hidden so much from her and the gratitude for everything he had given her. The question echoing in her mind was, why didn't he ever tell me? Perhaps Raphael wanted her to love him for the man he was, not for what he possessed. A lesson Clara would carry with her. Over time, Clara began to explore what that fortune represented. Instead of getting lost in ostentation, she decided to study the businesses Raphael had left behind. She began consulting experts and delving into the financial world, something she never imagined doing. Thus, Clara realized that inheriting wealth isn't just a responsibility, but an opportunity to make a lasting impact. Have you ever thought about what you would do if you were in her shoes? Despite the revelations, Clara didn't let herself be consumed by the luxury her new life could offer. She chose to maintain her simple essence, honoring what Raphael had always valued: authenticity and real connections. She declined extravagant parties and invested her time in learning more about philanthropy and ways to help people. It's amazing how some secrets can transform not only who we are but also what we can do for the world. However, the emptiness left by Raphael remained. The fortune did not fill the longing, but it gave Clara a new motivation. Every decision she made was guided by the memory of their conversations, of what he believed in. It's curious how someone's legacy can become a map, even when the instructions seem incomplete. Raphael didn't just leave money, he left a purpose. Clara knew her story was far from over. As she looked at the papers of the will, she felt there was something more there, something Raphael had left as a final message. The inheritance was more than wealth. It was a key to the next chapter of Clara's life. And so, she opened her heart to the unknown, unaware of the challenges that would follow. Amid the documents left by Raphael, Clara found something that seemed to have been written especially for her: his will. It wasn't just a set of formal instructions, but almost a love letter, full of details that revealed the care and protection he wanted to ensure for her. Raphael had set up a special fund, shielded from any attempt by others to claim his fortune. For Clara, this wasn't just a financial gesture, but proof of deep love. The protective fund seemed like something out of a movie. Raphael had foreseen that Clara might face unexpected challenges, and the will was structured to ensure she would be secure in any circumstance. He knew about the envy Laura, Clara's stepmother, harbored, and made it clear, in delicate yet firm words, that Laura would have no access to anything. It was a brilliant strategy, as if Raphael had thought of everything before leaving. Clara was moved when she realized how well Raphael knew her story and her pains. He knew Laura was a threat, even though he hadn't spent much time with her. The will was more than a legal document. It was a shield against the manipulation Clara might face. Have you ever imagined having someone who protects you even after they're gone? That's how Clara felt, safe and loved. In addition to the protective fund, Raphael left specific instructions for Clara. Use what I've built to create something greater. Turn the legacy into something that can inspire others. These words echoed in Clara's mind like a mission. It wasn't just about inheriting, it was about multiplying. Raphael believed that true wealth is that which touches lives beyond our own. And Clara was determined to honor that. Reading the will was a moment of deep reflection for Clara. She saw how much Raphael had thought of every detail, anticipating the challenges she would face. It was as if he had written a script to guide her, even in his absence. This made her realize something powerful. A legacy isn't just what we leave in assets, but the impact we create in the hearts of those we love. Clara also found letters left by Raphael, as if they were little messages of encouragement scattered through time. In one of them, he wrote, "Be strong, even when the world seems against you. Use what I left to change the game." These words gave Clara a sense of power she had never felt before. It wasn't the money that empowered her, but Raphael's trust in her ability to do something great. As Clara put the documents away, she felt there was more to the story. The will was just the beginning of a new journey, one that would require courage, strategy, and above all, resilience. She knew the challenges were far from over. After all, when it comes to protecting a legacy, the path is rarely easy. And Clara was ready for whatever would come next. It didn't take long for Laura, Clara's stepmother, to appear again. With a victimized air and sugary speeches, she tried to convince Clara that she deserved a part of Raphael's fortune. "After all, we're family," she would say, while her eyes betrayed an insatiable ambition. Clara, who knew her stepmother's manipulation game well, understood that this battle would be both emotional and legal. Laura even contested the will in court, claiming that Raphael had acted in bad faith by protecting it so carefully. But to her frustration, the document was shielded from any loopholes. Raphael had been meticulous in structuring everything. Still, Laura didn't give up, using every opportunity to try to destabilize Clara emotionally. To face this, Clara had to learn to separate affection from duty. One of the hardest moments came when Laura began spreading rumors, trying to tarnish Clara's reputation. It was a typical tactic of someone with no solid arguments, attacking the other person's character. Clara, however, remained firm. She knew she couldn't react impulsively. As they say, truth doesn't need defense, it stands on its own. So, she let the facts speak for themselves. Despite the pain of dealing with so many intrigues, Clara found support in unexpected places. Raphael's friends and new allies came forward to help her navigate the challenges. She hired experienced lawyers and learned to trust the process, no matter how exhausting it was. Clara understood that protecting a legacy isn't just a fight against others, but an internal battle to maintain dignity and focus. One of the most important lessons Clara learned was the power of saying no. Laura used every emotional weapon she had: tears, memories, pleas for compassion, but Clara stayed firm. Saying no to manipulation and blackmail is an act of self-love, and Clara finally realized that she didn't need to feel guilty for protecting what was rightfully hers. In one of her final encounters with Laura, Clara was clear and direct. What Raphael left is for continuing his work, not for fueling fights. "I won't give this up." For the first time, Laura seemed speechless. It was at that moment that Clara realized her strength wasn't just in the money, but in the confidence she had built in herself throughout that process. Even after settling the dispute, Clara knew that Laura would always be a complicated figure in her life. But instead of holding on to resentment, she chose to let go of the past. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or accepting, but moving forward without carrying unnecessary burdens. And so, Clara prepared to turn her new life into something meaningful, knowing that the future still held great challenges and opportunities. With the fortune in her hands and the conflicts resolved, Clara found herself facing a crucial question: what am I going to do with all of this? The answer came gradually, like a breeze gently blowing before it becomes a strong wind. Clara decided that she didn't want to simply enjoy the money, but to use it as a tool to transform lives. She began to draw up a plan, something that could leave a lasting impact on the world. Inspired by her own story, Clara founded an organization focused on women and talented young people who lacked the resources to pursue their dreams. The foundation offered scholarships, mentorship programs, and psychological support, helping people overcome challenges similar to those she herself had faced. It was her way of turning pain into purpose. Can you imagine the power of something like that in someone's life? The first few months were challenging. Clara had to learn about project management, fundraising, and how to measure the impact of her actions. She hired a dedicated team and enlisted experts to help structure the foundation. Every step was a lesson, and Clara realized how much growth is a continuous process. "Life is like planting a tree," she would say. "The work is hard at first, but the fruits are always worth it." The foundation not only helped others, but also brought Clara a new sense of identity. She was no longer just the pretty girl who sparked envy or the young heir to a fortune. Clara was now a leader, someone who used her position to make a difference. This taught her that true power isn't about control, but about empowering others. One of the Foundation's most remarkable initiatives was creating a program to teach practical skills to the people it supported. From entrepreneurship classes to self-confidence workshops, Clara wanted to ensure that Raphael's legacy remained alive and dynamic. "What you do with what you have defines who you are," she would tell the participants. And those words echoed like a mantra to all who crossed her path. Clara also began giving speeches, sharing her story and the lessons she had learned along the way. Her talks were filled with emotion and practical wisdom, inspiring people to look at their own journeys with fresh eyes. She always ended with the same message: it doesn't matter where you came from or what you faced. What matters is what you do with it. Despite her accomplishments, Clara knew her journey was just beginning. The Foundation was just one of many ways to honor Raphael's legacy and her own. She felt that each step took her closer to discovering what it meant to live a full and meaningful life. And deep down, she knew the future still held unexpected revelations. After all, life is like that, full of surprises that invite us to keep going. Now that you know Clara's journey, it's time to think, what would you do in her place? Would you have the strength to turn challenges into opportunities? The truth is, we all have the power to change our story, but that requires courage, purpose, and most importantly, the will to act. The legacy we leave behind isn't just about what we accumulate, but about the impact we have on the people around us. So, how about starting today? Ask yourself, what is your purpose? What can you do now to create a better future for yourself and for others? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because your reflections may inspire someone who's seeking a fresh start. And if you want to keep learning, transforming your life, and discovering stories that inspire, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any content that can help you reach the next level. Remember, change begins when you decide to take action. And are you ready for that?